I discovered the haunted baby blue doll, and it whispered my name in the night. I never should have opened that door. The unease settled in my stomach like lead the moment the creaky hinges groaned. It was supposed to be just another day, a simple evening rummaging through my late grandmother's things. Dust hung thick in the air, floating like memories long forgotten. I stepped into the dimly lit attic, the shadows clinging to the corners like an old secret. In the farthest corner, a small glint caught my eye. There it was, a baby blue doll, suspenders straining over its rounded belly, eyes that seemed far too aware for something made of porcelain. I felt a chill shoot down my spine. It was not just any doll, you could tell by the way it sat, smug and unbothered, as if waiting for something. Or someone. I took a breath, the air dank and stale, the faintest whisper of mildew wrapping around me. Was that a giggle? No. Just the haunting echoes of the past, I told myself. I stepped closer, the wood beneath my feet protesting with every creak. And then it happened. Her head turned. I swear it did. The eyes, once glazed over in a perpetual stare, now glimmered with mischief, and I felt my heart pound like a drum in the suffocating silence. What was happening? I reached out, fingertips brushing against her frayed dress, and the moment my skin made contact, a cold shiver seized me. Help me! It came not from my lips but from the doll, sweet and chilling, wrapping around me like a fog in the dark. The name she whispered, my name, sent a bolt of ice through my veins. My instincts flared. Something was very wrong. I stumbled back, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon me. The attic shifted around me, every creak echoed with laughter, every shadow pulsed with life. My mind raced. I could hear footsteps, no, whispers prattling behind me, floating on the verge of understanding, mocking me. And then, amidst the chaos, silence fell. The air thickened, each breath a struggle. I felt trapped, the walls inching closer, suffocating my thoughts. Was I losing it? Suddenly I sensed it again, that movement, a flicker at the edge of my vision. I turned, and my heart dropped. A figure in the corner, cloaked in darkness, watching. My breath quickened. The outline shifted, melting into the shadows. Who are you? The question slipped out, trembling on my lips. I felt the banality of my fear clash with the abject terror curdling inside me. Then the door slammed shut behind me with a resounding finality. I was not alone. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness whispered, and I felt it seep into my bones. My pulse echoed in my ears, a frantic reminder of my heartbeat against the oppressive backdrop of silence. The doll's gaze felt heavy upon me, a judgment from something far beyond this world. I dared to glance back at her, and this time, she was smiling, a wide, malevolent grin that twisted the softness of her porcelain face. Come closer, her voice sang again, honeyed with a sinister lilt. I could feel my body betraying me as I took a hesitant step forward, against my will, as if an unseen force were gently pulling me toward her. Fear clawed at my throat, wild and scrambling for escape, but I was slotted into the moment like a cog in a grotesque machine. Suddenly, the soft flutter of fabric rustled behind me. I whipped around again, the prickles on the back of my neck standing on end. The cloaked figure was no longer just a shadow, it had moved closer, its form solidifying into something grotesque and otherworldly. Pale, skeletal fingers curled around the edge of the stairs leading to the attic, the knuckles protruding like a babbling brook of bones. Leave now. The figure's voice was a harsh rasp, as if the words had been dragged through gravel. My surroundings warped, the walls closing in, and my instincts screamed at me to run. Yet my feet felt glued to the floor, and I clutched the side of the doll for support, for some scrap of normalcy in this bizarre, hellish tableau. No. I shouted, though it felt hollow against the creeping dread. What do you want from me? A shimmering figure coalesced beside the doll, a haunting echo of a little girl, her eyes wide and sorrowful as if caught in an eternal moment of despair. Her lips formed silent words, pleading and desperate. I could see the flickers of light dance around her as she reached out, but every inch she moved away from the doll seemed to draw her back, tethered by an unseen string. Behind me, the figure creaked forward, gliding on a wave of stagnant air, the light from the attic window revealing its true horror. Wisps of a dark shroud hung from its shoulders, attenuating with clumps of soft, ethereal mist that twisted like tendrils of smoke. It glanced at the doll with raw hunger, a predator stalking its prey. What do you want? I screamed at both of them, my voice shattering the pall of stillness. The girl whimpered, retreating slightly back toward her porcelain counterpart, and the doll responded, "Help me, help us." The words spiraled within me, pulling at my very essence. A clash of emotions wrestled in my chest, fear, anger, compassion, the tight knot of them threatening to rupture. My heart raced as I remembered the eerie stories my grandmother used to whisper about toys that held the souls of the forgotten. The air shifted, cold and rancid, wrapping around me like chains. A new layer of reality clawed at my skin, pulling me deeper into the nightmare. The doll's eyes sparkled with malice and something else, something raw that reminded me of longing. I turned back to the spectral figure, which now hovered inches below me, its hollow eyes filled with the weight of despair. "It's too late for you," it rasped, pointing a bony finger at the doll. "It feeds on the lost." And in that moment, the walls erupted with sound. The wailing, a chorus of agonized spirits, filled the space, crashing into my mind like a dark tide. The old wooden beams trembled, resonating with their despair, and the atmosphere thickened with horror. With a renewed urgency, I broke free from the invisible bonds, racing for the door. I could feel an incensed power rising behind me, and as I yanked it open, darkness exploded outward like a thrown blanket, crashing over me. The last thing I saw was the doll, eyes glowing, a grin splitting its porcelain face wider than should have been possible, as shadowy limbs reached out from the corners of the attic, eager to pull me back. Then everything went black. I awoke amid a thick fog, pressing close to my skin like the clammy fingers of a deathly cold embrace. The familiar room felt alien, distorted by an undertow of hazy shadows that refused to recede. Every corner seemed to pulse. I staggered to my feet, heart thudding like a war drum, and rubbed my temples, struggling to pull clarity from the murk. Where am I? I muttered into the silence, choking on the daunting stillness. It whispered back, thickening the air around me. My surroundings were drenched in an oppressive gloom, the remnants of flickering candlelight illuminating the warped contours of what looked like my old bedroom. Whispers slithered away from me, slipping into the shadows as I moved, and the heaviness increased, a palpable presence lurking just beyond my reach. As I took a hesitant step forward, my foot crushed a brittle feather beneath it. Looking down, I recognized it as one of the sparse mementos from my childhood, a long-faded memory of innocence. Around me, the rest of my belongings were rotting in forgotten corners, photos faded beyond recognition. Was this a hellish mockery of my past? Lying will get you nowhere. A voice emerged from the floorboards, raw and dripping with disdain. At once, panic clawed at my throat, and I spun, a frantic ballet of dread. The shadows snapped back, tightening around me like a stranglehold, and I sensed they were closing in, drawn by my fear and vulnerability. I blurted out, "What do you want?" A feeble scream swallowed by an engulfing silence. But the shadows didn't answer. Instead, they coalesced into a figure, a warped silhouette that reflected my deepest fears and regrets. It hovered just above the floor, a tapestry of wailing faces woven into its being, each one a haunting reminder of something lost. My heart sank, and I staggered back, colliding with the damp wall of memories. Suddenly, a melodic laughter rippled through the air, the ghostly remnants of the doll's voice entwined with it. "Find me," it sang, a song so honeyed yet tainted it wrapped around my mind like vines of dread. The sound created pricks of chill up my spine. Help us, help her. The walls, once a tangled tapestry of my youth, began to peel away, an invitation to plunge deeper into the chasm of horror. I felt an otherworldly pull emanating from the pitch-black attic door, still ajar and hovering like a portal into despair. I wanted to hold on to the last threads of my sanity, yet something beckoned me closer, garbed in promises of answers and hidden truths. Compelled against my better judgment, my body moved toward the cabinet where the doll had once been, the air thick with anticipation. I flung it open, and my heart sank into the depth of despair. The doll was gone. In its place was an envelope yellowed and slick, as if soaked in treachery. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing photographs, one after another, each capturing glimpses of twisted realities. The first was of the doll, with small hands clasped around a child's neck, a scene of frightful intimacy that sent icy fingers along my spine. Next was the spectral girl, now clearer than ever, sorrow etched onto her ghostly features, but in each image, she grew weaker, as if drained by something unseen. I flipped through the photos, heart racing, until the last image fell open. It was a picture of me, yes, wide with terror, frozen in a moment, caught between two worlds. I was no longer sure where I ended, and the horror began. A sudden crack echoed from the darkness above, followed by a soft laugh that sent tremors through my knees. The air thickened into vectors of malice, enveloping me, squeezing my lungs until I gasped for breath. From the pitch of the attic, a shadow clambered down, the doll cradled in its arms, her eyes burning bright, reflecting a soul crushed by grief and hunger. "Join us," it crooned, an echo entwined with the cries of those lost in the void. Before I could respond, the door to my room slammed shut, sealing me in. The shadows twisted and writhed with hunger, rushing toward me, hungry for the warmth of life. The specter and its mask of torment edged closer, and with my heart pounding louder than ever, I realized I stood on the brink of an irrevocable choice. The air thickened, and I inhaled the stench of rotting hope. The faces in the shadows whispered, no longer begging but demanding, "Will you save her, or will you forsake your soul?" And then the shadow lunged for me, claws reaching out with terrible intent, just as I saw the doll's porcelain grin stretch wider, gleaming with malevolent joy. In that horrifying moment, I felt the darkness swallow me whole, an insatiable void that promised no escape. The world around me twisted as I was consumed by shadows, the very fabric of reality fraying at the edges. With a fierce scream stifled in my throat, I flailed instinctively, the rush of darkness swirling around me like an angry tempest. Clawing hands grazed against my skin, and I felt a ghastly chill slice into my chest, as if the shadows were siphoning my warmth, negating my very essence. Suddenly, the room exploded with light, blinding and hot, erupting from the depths of my fear. The figures recoiled, darting away just out of reach, flickering like candle flames caught in a gale. I blinked through the haze, trying to recalibrate to this unexpected brightness, and there it stood, me childhood bedroom redefined as an altar to sorrow. Amid the chaos, the doll me accuser sat unscathed on the floor, eyes glimmering as if drinking the light. She was not merely enchanted, she was a vessel of despair, capable of manifesting the twisted echoes of the past. I swallowed hard, instinctively backing away from her, but her gaze latched onto mine, pulling me deeper into her abyss. "Come play with me," her sweet voice cooed, now unmistakably mocking. With each haunting syllable, I felt the heavy weight of despair latch onto my shoulders, dragging me back toward the corners of buried recollections. Everything screamed to escape, yet I was mesmerized, caught in the magnetic pull of her ancient sorrow. I could feel memories rushing back, black tendrils reaching from the past. A memory of playdates and laughter. Warm summer afternoons shrieked back into my mind, but the laughter faded into the wails of children lost in whispered shadows. The walls pulsed with their cries, echoing a longing that twisted like a knife in my gut. "Help me find them," the doll continued, her innocent voice a grotesque parody of trust. She gestured with small, porcelain fingers toward the attic door, which now appeared to pulsate with a dark allure, promising secrets as old as time itself. In trembling surrender, I stepped toward it, the very air around me thickening as if breathing an unseen anticipation. Cold swept through me, each breath a heavy extraction, painfully deliberate. But just as I laid my hand on the door, a frantic knocking erupted from within, as if something was thrashing against its confines. It grew louder, more violent, rattling the structure around me, demanding to be released. Don't open it! A voice shrieked from somewhere deep inside the chaos, a resonant plea drowning beneath the frantic barrage. It's a trap! The voice sounded familiar, echoing stridently from the mulch of my memories, but I had no time to question its origin. With an enumeration of ages-long dread, I flung the door open, confronted with a chaos of writhing shadows and blinding strikes of flickering light. It was a desolate wasteland gripped by tormented attics suffocating in gloom, filled with discarded whispers and spectral remnants. But among the decayed artifacts, something moved, a trembling silhouette among the cobwebs, shrouded in darkness, eyes shimmering with an eerie light. Come! Find us! The voice called again, compelling and insistent. It cracked like thunder, reverberating with both promise and dread. The thing began to emerge, a figure with short, disheveled hair and hollowed cheeks, stitched together by the fabric of the phantoms that had once occupied this cursed chamber. Realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was the spectral girl, the one trapped beneath the weight of laughter and torment, a fragment of every lost childhood echoing through time. I reached out to her instinctively, desperate to pull her back from the void, even as the air thickened with a pungent decay, blending my memories with the horrors of the attic's expanse. Yet, the shadows recoiled, warping into jagged shapes that began to circle me. I could feel their breath, hot and rancid, feeding off my fear. The doll's laughter twisted above the cacophony. Join us! Help us, before it's too late! My heart raced, the space between beings fading, as something more sinister than I anticipated lurked in the distant, an unholy thing manifested from the very darkness I had feared, a hunger far worse than anything I had encountered. Then, just as the girl stretched her hand towards me, a piercing screech erupted from behind me, silencing every other sound. I spun around, realizing too late what I had unleashed. A mass of twisted faces surged for the wave of tormented spirits slamming into me, imprisoning me in their purgatory. I was pulled into the depths where I heard my own voice frantically screaming, but only darkness echoed back, drowning my sanity. The door snapped shut behind me, sealing my fate as the air in the attic thickened with despair. The only source of light blurred into nothingness, and as the ground vanished beneath me, the last thing I saw was the doll's grin stretching impossibly wide, eyes gleaming with dark delight, whispering my name in a haunting lullaby. In that moment of desolation, I knew I had crossed an irrevocable threshold, and somewhere lost in the murk a faint echo of my own laughter mingled with the cries of the damned. As I fell, I realized the terrifying truth: I had become part of the story. The darkness enveloped me, wrapping around my limbs like heavy chains, pinning me to a ground I could no longer see nor feel. I was lost in a torrent of memories, sailing through a landscape woven with both joy and terror. Time lost coherence. Moments liquefied and dripped away, merging memories of laughter summers with echoes of anguish. It felt as if I was being drawn into an endless abyss wading through a thick fog colored by dread. Help us! The phantom girl's voice lingered, whispering like a gust from a forgotten grave. Each word curled into my mind, stitching together grief and desperation, threatening to consume my very essence. I desperately fought to break free from the vines of despair wrapping around me. Yet the more I struggled, the tighter they clenched. Then, I was jolted by the sensation of cool air crashing against my skin, revitalizing yet eerie. My surroundings shifted subtly, and I found myself once again in the attic. I could feel rough wood beneath my palms and the stench of mildew filling my lungs. But this time, the vibe was different, charged with a sinister potency. The girl stood before me, closer now, her form wavering between corporeal and spectral, eyes burning with unnatural light. Find them before he does, she implored, her voice trembling as shadows flickered around her. The urgency pulsated, it cut through the weight of despair like a jagged knife. Who? I managed to croak, fear cutting through the haze. She raised a finger to her cracked lips, and for a fleeting moment, the attic around us fell utterly silent, anticipation coiling tightly in the air like a dangerous spring. The shadows ceased their movement, almost as if they were waiting for a sign. And then, the floorboards beneath creaked ominously. Something stirred from below, deeper within the confines of the house, from within the very veins of its structure. As I glanced down, the floor breathed, pulsing unnaturally like a heart. I felt the swell of darkness rising up like a grotesque tide, reaching out for me, fingers of chilling air brushing against my ankles, urging me to step back. But my feet felt glued to the ground. The girl's gaze sharpened. "Now!" she yelled, her voice slicing through the silence with renewed power. "You must go." Before I could act, that primal force beneath the floor erupted. A fang maw of darkness burst forth, slathering wetness pouring out as it pulled around my feet. A figure clothed in shadows surged upward, revealing a maw woven from the despair of the countless lost souls. Its features shifted constantly, a kaleidoscope of agonized faces morphing and twisting. No! 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 I screamed as I backed away, panic scrambling through my bones. The thing rose taller, skeletal fingers grasping toward me, seeking contact. "Help!" I pleaded, a desperate call to the girl who was now trembling, her fragile form flickering in the dim light of the attic. But there was no time for self-pity. My instincts propelled me forward. I plunged into the gathering darkness, daring to confront the unknown that even the shadows feared. I was stepping onto dangerous ground where light had no dominion. "Find them!" The girl's voice resonated like a hymn, and suddenly the doll materialized in my mind, the real key to unlock this nightmare. I turned to face the twisted entity, my heart pounding like thunder above the cacophony of whispers. Then, I saw them, the dark shapes of children, bound within the specter's twisted mass. Their eyes glistened with tears, pleading silently, tethered to this haunt. "You must release us," one of them gasped, voice barely a bray of the spark of life in the unending shadow. With a surge of will, I darted toward the thrumming doll, which seemed to pulse with ancient power among the detritus of lost things. "You want them, right?" I yelled, addressing the hideous presence. "You want to play?" With a snarl, the creature lunged toward me, but I snatched the doll from the ground, clutching her to my chest. "Let them go!" I shouted, channeling all my fear and resolve. But it only howled, a cacophony of all the children's cries merging into a single anguished wail. Just as I felt a surge of fleeting hope, the attic transformed. Walls exhaled shadows, distorting reality. The shadows dropped their masks, reveling in the horror as the children shrieked louder, their voices fusing into an unholy symphony reverberating in my soul. And then, like a pulsating hand from the shadows, the darkness ripped through the attic, coiling around me in a vice grip. I was lifted from the ground, disoriented as the cries grew into a frenzy, vibrating through my bones. Something cold and damp slipped beneath my feet, tugging me into the very mouth of horror. As I hung suspended, the girl faded into the fuzziness of the darkness, her face twisting in a silent scream. I felt something snap inside me, a crucial tether disintegrating as I fought to reach for the fading light. "Help us!" they cried again, voices intertwining with the laughter of the doll, which had grown young and amicable, its upturned mouth curling beyond the bounds of sanity. In that crushing moment, the shadows lashed out, reclaiming their own, pulling me into their vast maw as the doll's laughter morphed into an echoing scream of absolute darkness. I was on the precipice of being swallowed whole, lost in the tempest where forgotten memories dance, and I realized the true horror. I was not just a prisoner. I had unwittingly become the final piece in a game that promised devastation. Before the abyss enveloped me entirely, I caught the glimmer of the girl's eyes, shining defiantly one last time. "Find us," she whispered, just before everything exploded into pitch-black silence. And as I lay pulled below, the world fractured once again, awakening something new, something darker, and I understood I was no longer alone in that void. The silence was thick, an oppressive blanket of darkness that stifled any semblance of hope or clarity. Time had lost all meaning, stretching endlessly in this suffocating void. I floated adrift in an alien landscape where despair coiled around my mind like a serpent, whispering secrets that clawed at the edges of my sanity. Suddenly, the stillness shattered. A low, guttural growl rolled through the shadows, vibrating beneath me as if the very ground had come to life. The cold suffused my body with an icy touch, and I felt the weight of unseen eyes boring into my soul, calculating and hungry. Out of the darkness emerged newborn shadows that twisted and writhed, a legion of coal-black tendrils that snaked around me. They felt alive, throbbing with an urgency that made my skin crawl, like the frantic heartbeat of an infinite monster. I tried to scream, but my voice echoed only to be absorbed by the encroaching void, swallowed by a darkness deeper than fear itself. Help us! The children's voices echoed once more, threading through the despair like a fragile lifeline. I grasped at the sound, willing it to guide me through the darkness. But the call also suffocated me with another truth: the children themselves were more than just lost souls here. They were trapped, and whatever held them captive had no intention of releasing me. If summoned by my thoughts, a sharp, cutting laughter erupted all around me. It was the doll's laughter, echoing through the void, mocking and taunting. The sound twisted into a symphony of unrest, vibrating in my soul, weaving itself into the fabric of my psyche. The faces of the children swirled through the darkness, their hollow eyes fixed on me as their mouths moved soundlessly, begging for rescue yet never making a sound that I could decipher. Find us. Their pleas morphed into a terrifying mantra that caught in my throat, becoming a clawing desperation that drove me forward into the inky blackness. My heart pounded, each beat resonating through the cacophony, a pulse of life amidst the dead silence. Gaining momentum, I stumbled as tendrils whipped around my ankles, dragging me down into the depths, pulling me toward a glowing, smoky pit that shimmered like an oily ocean churned by tempests. The last glimmer of the attic faded from memory, an ephemeral ghost swallowed by the uncertainty that surrounded me. With fierce resolve, I pushed against the darkness, propelled by the thought of the children's faces. I would not abandon them. Mustering every ounce of strength, I forced myself toward the gaping maw, hurtling through the raw chaos of twisted energies. Where was the doll? Where had it taken me? Inexorably, the sea of shadow threw me into the open maw of the pit, a treacherous descent into the unknown. I was engulfed, flailing as the cold darkness curled around me, suffocating my will. My heart raced as I plummeted deeper, darkness swallowing everything that defined me, everything I once was. Suddenly, I broke through, flung into the air and crashing onto hard ground. Stars flickered above me, yet they felt unbearably distant, throbbing like fragments of a shattered dream. I arose to find myself in a moonlit clearing, surrounded by twisted trees reaching out like skeletal hands, gnarled roots snaking like veins across the soil. In the center of the clearing lay the doll, perched on a stone pedestal, its glassy eyes gleaming with an eerie luminescence. But this wasn't the lifeless doll of my previous encounter. No, it radiated an unsettling aura, buzzing with malicious energy. The whispered secrets it held pulsed through the air, beckoning to me. I was on shaky legs as I approached the doll, utterly mesmerized, knowing I shouldn't. Shadows shifted among the trees, figures just out of sight, whispering my name. I shook my head, trying to dispel their allure, but I could already feel the siren call anchoring itself deep within me. Find us, it echoed, but the sound morphed a chorus of laughter haunting my ears, a taunting mockery of innocence that twisted my insides. Images of the children mingled with those of the malevolent doll, terror and mirth dancing grotesquely in my mind as dread clawed at my insides. As I reached out, trembling fingers meeting cold porcelain, a shockwave of consciousness exploded through me, suffusing the air with an electric energy that made my hair stand on end. Visions cascaded through my mind, blurry faces, spectral glances, screams mingling with giggles, each moment pulling me deeper into the doll's sinister embrace. The shadows around me writhed, eager to consume. And with a chilling finality, the doll's laughter escalated into a wailing crescendo, drowning out my thoughts. In that terrifying heartbeat, I felt something stir beneath the surface, a heavy presence rising, clashing against the raw energy around me. Darkness was alive and angry, and it sought retribution. Before I could pull my hand away, everything exploded. The ground surged beneath my feet, shattering the world. Figures emerged from the shadows, their mouths a silent scream, as the very trees wrung their branches like skeletal hands reaching for salvation. Then, a voicey guttural growl steeped in malice shattered the air, directly to me. You've awakened us. And as the clearing dimmed, a swell of panic tore through me. Darkness surged ever closer, and I realized I was not just a player in this twisted game. I was the catalyst for a horror that sought to break free, threatening to unleash its full fury. As the shadows closed in around me, I heard the children's cries cascade like raindrops, melding with the echoes of the doll's sinister laughter. I was trapped, a soul caught between realms, as a suffocating darkness loomed over me. "Find us" echoed one final time. With sheer terror coursing through me, I turned to face the horror enveloping the clearing, the air thickening with a dread realization. I was never supposed to leave. I was merely the herald of a horror far beyond my understanding. And as the darkness crashed down, I knew it would keep coming until it found all of us. The darkness pressed tight around me, breathless and suffocating, as the whispers intensified, a cacophony of voices rising, falling, overlapping in a demonic chant. The shadows closed in, coalescing into a mass of writhing forms, each twisted by grief and terror. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs in a frantic rhythm that mirrored the chaos surrounding me. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently beneath me, a sinister heartbeat echoing from deep within the earth. The shadows paused, as if holding their breath. I braced myself, poised between desperation and the instinct to run. Just then, the doll on its stone pedestal began to glow more intensely, its porcelain face shifting with unnatural animation. The look in its glassy eyes was a chilling reflection of something ancient and malevolent. "Did you feel it?" it murmured, its voice now woven into my thoughts, a slick whisper that danced on the edges of my consciousness. "They're close enough to taste." As if summoned by the doll's words, the air thickened, twisting with a sharp, stinging energy. Flickers of pale light sprang from the depths of the shadows, illuminating the horrific outlines of what lay beyond. Spectral forms clawed their way into the clearing, their faces twisted in silent wails, eternally trapped in a realm of anguish. Each spectral visage raised its gnarled hands towards me, a plea, a warning, or perhaps a curse. "No!" I screamed, stumbling back as the figures lurched forward, shimmering with a frozen agony that chilled my bones. My instincts screamed to flee, to break the grasp of the encroaching darkness, but the doll's malevolence entwined with my will, guiding me back toward the pedestal. "You must find us," it whispered insistently. A piercing pain shot through my palm. Looking down, I saw dark tendrils reach from the doll's base, entwining my fingers with unbearable vice-like strength. My blood pulsed against the doll's porcelain surface, a bond forming, rippling through the air around me, a tidal wave of sorrow and fear amplifying the pulse of the clearing. "Join us," the voices climbed in intensity, a demonic harmony binding us together, the living, the lost, the tormented. Waves of despair surged, and with it came glimpses into the eyes of children, painful memories wrapped in sorrow. They flashed before me, each echoing cry intertwining with the laughter that grew louder, more mocking. In sheer horror, I stumbled back, wrenched free from the binding tendrils. My foot slipped on the moist earth, and I fell, landing hard amidst the chaos. A flood of shadows poured over me, mournful wails blending into the chilling laughter gripping the air. They surrounded the pedestal, a thoughtful congregation waiting for an unspoken signal. The shadows became frantic, retreating and swirling in anticipation. "It wants to be free! It hungers!" they chanted, shrill in their excited frenzy. Desperately, I scrambled to my feet, my entire being screaming at the overwhelming terror. In that fleeting moment of clarity, I realized the doll was not merely an object. It was the linchpin of a realm where the lost and the cursed were bound, a prison of their own misery. "Destroy it!" a voice rang out, a child's voice, clear yet desperate, cutting through the din. Confusion swirled within me as I looked toward the source. A young girl stood among the shadows, her face pale and eyes wide with grief. "Please, you have to stop it! It will consume everyone." The laughter shifted, coiling around me like chains. The doll pulsed with energy, a manifest darkness that suddenly turned its haunting gaze upon the girl, the slightest indication of displeasure passing over its porcelain features. "She must not live," it hissed, its sinister tone echoing through the shadows, jolting fear through my very core. "No!" I yelled, rushing toward the girl as the shadows began to surge forward, eager to claim another soul. "Get away from her!" But my voice fell dead in the thickening air, swallowed by the screeching chaos as the shadows lunged towards us. A blinding light erupted around the girl. She reached for me, her fingers stretching through the encroaching darkness. "You must believe. Fight it!" The doll responded with unbridled fury, laughter morphing into twisted rage, each note a wordless threat that promised damnation. I could feel its power thrumming through the ground, a visceral draw toward the pedestal, toward the depths of that cursed energy. Fighting against that magnetic pull, I glanced back to the girl, whose desperate gaze ignited a spark of resolve within me. But the shadows recoiled, amalgamating into a grotesque form that twisted beyond physical recognition, a manifestation of despair. I could almost taste its overwhelming hunger as it reached toward the girl, determined to snuff out her light. With the dread realization that the choice loomed before me, I hesitated for a single, staggering moment. The screams of lost children crescendoed in my ears, the echoes of the doll creating a tempest of darkness that threatened to swallow us all whole. In my heart, I felt the crushing weight of the decision, to abandon the girl and save myself, or to confront the wicked legacy of the doll and risk everything for another chance at hope. And as I stepped forward, ready to confront the terrible truth, the ground beneath me trembled violently once more. The shadows surged, the laughter crescendoed, and with an earth-shattering roar, the entity took form before me, a grotesque shape that pulsated and breathed darkness. "Choose!" it demanded, a voice rising from the abyss, suffocating and primal. In that spine-chilling moment, everything shifted, the boundaries of fear and reality blurred, and as I locked eyes with the entity, I understood. The battle for my soul had only just begun. The air sang with an oppressive energy, razor-thin crescendos vibrating in a symphony of dread. I stood rooted to the ground, the weight of the entity's gaze pressing down on me, suffocating and unrelenting. My breath caught in my throat, the urgency of the moment crashing through me like waves against jagged rocks. The girl, still illuminated by a specter of hope, was fading into the shadows, her figure flickering in and out like an old film reel struggling to sustain life. "Choose!" The entity's voice was a growl, thick with contempt, the hot breath of some primordial nightmare washing over me. I felt my heart pounding against my ribs, each thump a painful reminder of the stakes. To my left, the doll glowed more intensely now, its porcelain visage twisting into a mocking smile. It knew the power it wielded, knew how to manipulate the threads of fear woven into my very being. "Please!" the girl cried out, the urgency in her voice cutting through the veil of confusion. "You have to fight it. It's all lies." Lies. The word echoed through my mind, shaking loose the static that clouded my thoughts. For a fleeting moment, I fought against the sorrow gripping my heart, a desperate ember of determination flickering against the darkness. But the entity laughed, a guttural sound that curled through my body like ice. "She is nothing. A fleeting spark to be extinguished. You wish to save her? Very well with that." The ground shattered beneath my feet, the earth splitting open into a maw of obsidian chaos. The girl gasped, fear etched across her face. As I fell, gravity's grip loosened its hold, allowing the shadows to pull me deeper into the abyss. I screamed, but the darkness consumed my voice, devouring my last shred of certainty. Instead of plummeting into a void, I felt a sudden jerk, as though the fabric of reality had been altered. With a visceral tug, I was thrust into an echoing chamber, a vast expanse of swirling shadows and agonized whispers, the air thick with unnameable dread. Here, the faces of those trapped in eternal torment morphed into the gelatinous void around me, stretching and warping as they reached for me. Each contorted face bore witness to unspeakable horrors, eyes wide and pleading, bodies writhing in an agony that defied time. I gasped, trying to drown out the cacophony, to find some clarity amidst their agonizing screams, but the enormity of their suffering was overpowering, flooding my senses. All of a sudden, the shadows erupted, twisting wildly to take solid form. Each wave of darkness coalesced into figures of children whose laughter had once echoed joyfully, now illusions of despair pulling me further down into despair's clutch. They surrounded me, reaching out, murmuring in panicked urgency. "Help us, save us," they cried in unison, their voices overlapping, a chilling hymn of torment. I felt their anguish claw at me, a weight that threatened to drag me under. "Enough!" the entity's voice thundered, reverberating off the unseen walls of this wretched prison. "You are bound to the doll. You are his vessel." In a moment of clarity I remembered. The doll, once a trinket of childhood innocence, was an ancora point of connection to a cursed past. I turned, urgently seeking a path back to the girl outside this realm, desperate to believe in good as the shadows writhed hungrily around me. Focus! Illuminate your heart with truth. A whisper broke through, a voice that felt like a gentle breeze. It was the girl again, her presence a beacon of purity amidst the overwhelming darkness. The doll, it craves your fear. It thrives on despair. Don't let it bind you. Defiance surged within me as I grasped the ephemeral thread of hope she offered, the strength of her resolve illuminating the void around us. Summoning every ounce of courage, I willed my heart to pulse with light, pushing the darkness back. Just as the shadows began to wane, the ground quaked beneath me, the air vibrated with a terrible energy, and the entity howled in fury. You cannot break the bond. You are mine! With one final push against the encroaching shadows, I flung myself forward, calling out to the girl. I will not let you take her. I will fight. As the shadows recoiled, the doll erupted with a blinding flash, its face twisting in fury, each crack in its porcelain skin revealing a forest of jagged darkness beneath. The entities shrieked in unison, alarm flaring in their hollow eyes. And then, just when I thought I could breach the surface of this nightmare, the ground beneath me split wide open, and from the chasm came the cacophony of lost souls, surging toward the light of my resolve with a terrifying desperation. I could see the girl, suspended at the edge, her eyes filled with both hope and the weight of despair. Help me! She screamed as the shadows reached out, desperate to reclaim her light. But before I could leap forward, the world went black once more, and I found myself alone in darkness, the whispers echoing ominously, a warning that chilled my blood. Choose and remember, they all shall fall. The last words echoed ominously around me, filling the abyss as my heart raced. I was left wondering, would I emerge from this realm of shadows, or would I become another voice joining the cacophony? And as the first slivers of light began to reclaim the darkness, the laughter returned sharp and teeth-grinding, enveloping me like a shroud of despair. I was not yet free, and the true horror was only just beginning. The whispers morphed into a low, mocking chant, spiraling around me like a tornado of sound. I stumbled back, a sense of vertigo overcoming me. Why can't I wake up? I whispered to myself, desperate for an escape. With each passing moment, the shadows grew thicker, clutching at my limbs like creeping vines intent on pulling me down. I could feel the weight of despair settling heavily in my chest. Foolish girl, the entity spat, its voice now agonizingly close, as if whispering secrets directly into my ear. How can you hope to awaken from a dream that is your reality? Your choice was made the moment you took that doll in hand. I felt it then, the chilling understanding that the doll was not merely a trinket, but a harbinger of my own making, drawn from the remnants of a childhood long neglected. Panic surged, washing over me like a tidal wave. The weight of so many lost souls pressed against my back as though trying to break through a barrier that existed only in my mind. But amidst the darkness, there was a flickering idea as fragile as a candle against the night. The bond, the connection. I murmured, thinking back to every moment I had held the doll, to every whispered secret it had shared with me. It wasn't just fear that had tethered me to this curse. It was nostalgia, longing. I had embraced the past, but the entity twisted it into a weapon against me. Embrace your fear, it hissed, its voice dripping with pleasure, or succumb to oblivion. What if I choose differently? I shouted back defiantly, feeling a tingle of newfound strength in my words. What if I defy you? The shadows recoiled slightly, as though uncertain. Behind me, the sorrowful murmurs intensified, the lost souls yearning for freedom, their pain an echo in this hellish prison. They cannot be saved, the entity growled, fury lacing its tone. You are all bound by your own fear. It will consume you all. I gathered the fragments of my will, piecing together the strength born from empathy and the desire to mend what had been broken. No! I yelled, newfound determination spilling over. We are more than our fear. I choose hope. At those words, the air shimmered, and with it, a crack began to form in the oppressive atmosphere. I could feel it radiate warmth, the kind that had once filled my home. the glowing thread of light wrapped around me like a protective mantle, growing brighter as I held fast to the thoughts of happier times. But just then, the ground beneath me shook violently, an angry roar booming through the chamber. "You are nothing but a child. Your refusal to accept your fate is futile," the entity screamed, and with a deafening crash, the chasm opened wide once more, pulling at me with a terrible force. For a moment, I hovered on the precipice of the abyss, the light fighting desperately against the dark tendrils reaching for me. Below, I could see faces, ghostly images twisted in pain, their mouths voicing silent screams of agony and loss. Among them, I swore I recognized my childhood friend, her eyes pleading for liberation. No. I wailed, the depth of despair overwhelming me. "I can't leave you," and yet I felt the light shimmering through my grasp, urging me to let go, to embrace the darkness. "Remember, choose wisely, or fall to despair." Just as I felt my fingers slipping, the memories rushed through my mind: laughter, secrets shared, and a promise made long ago to always cherish those I loved. I knew I had to bring that light back. I had to shatter the veil between this nightmare and the waking world. With a guttural scream, I pulled the light into my heart, letting it detonate like a star, pushing back the shadows. All around me erupted in chaos as the entity howled in rage, the souls rediscovering their own flickers of hope. They rose, not as remnants of the past, but as fierce flames yearning for freedom. But even as I surged upward, there was a sharp pull, a violent tug back toward the depths, the laughter morphing into something grotesque and familiar. "You cannot escape your fate," it shrieked, its voice transforming into that of the girl. "Embrace the doll, or lose everything." In the final moment, I felt the grip of both light and dark vie for my soul. The weight of my choice crashed down as if it could bring the world crumbling in on itself. I barely had time to grasp the doll, the porcelain cold in my hands, before its horrific visage twisted in a grotesque smirk, and the shadows leaped toward me. I felt the ground shudder, and then, with an earth-shaking jolt, the echo of laughter pealed around me, resonating through the void as reality warped beyond recognition. "Choose, choose, choose," the chant reverberated, drowning out my thoughts as the world faded to black, and then it froze, all light and sound extinguished, leaving me in unbearable silence, on the brink of two realities. But in that chilling stillness, I heard Ida faint whisper, slithering through the silence like the hiss of a serpent, "You chose wrong." In that moment I knew I had unwittingly unleashed something far worse. The silence stretched out infinitely, so profound it almost felt tangible, wrapping around my senses like a suffocating shroud. I floated, suspended in the void, acutely aware of a gnawing sense of dread clawing at my insides, filling me with a slow-burning horror. All at once, the laughter returned, this time sharper and more sinister, echoing through the darkness, a cacophony of whispers that blurred the lines of reality and reverberated deep within my mind. "You chose wrong," the voice resonated, dripping with malevolence. It was the doll speaking. I recognized its inflection, the insidious tone that twisted my memories into something grotesque. I gripped its cold porcelain form, fighting against the rising tide of despair and anguish. The darkness recoiled momentarily, but only to surge forward in a terrible wave, grotesque figures emerging from the shadows, children's faces distorted in fear, their eyes wide with a haunting plea. "How could you?" they chimed, their voices intertwining into a mournful symphony that pierced through the veil of my heart. "You had the chance to set us free." Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted and churned, darkness swirling into a tangible force that pulled me down, deep into the maw of despair. I screamed, but it felt like a distant echo, swallowed by the abyss. The walls of the void began to contort, merging into shifting shapes of despair, faces, bodies, memories, each a fragment of lives lost, their expressions etched in eternal mourning. The laughter intensified, now a dark chorus of amusement and triumph. From the depths, I felt an ancient presence surfacing, a swirl of energy that buzzed with pure malevolence. "Did you really think you could wish away the past?" it spat. "You were offered salvation, yet you took the bait. Now, feel the weight of your choices." With that, the shadows compellingly coiled around me, squeezing at my throat with a chilling grip. My heart pounded, each beat echoing like a war drum. I couldn't let this be the end. I remembered the girl, the one who had laughed with the innocence of youth before that laughter turned into cries of anguish. I had to save her. Let them go! I bellowed into the murky dark, summoning every shred of hope inside me. You will not take them. As if in response, the shadows froze, the laughter dissipating into a hum, and a profound silence enveloped me. But then the doll's eyes flared with blinding light, illuminating the darkness like a beacon of horror and despair. A wave of memories surged through me, every single laugh turned into a cry, every whispered secret devolving into screams of horror. The doll twisted beneath my grasp, its body stretching and warping, becoming something monstrous, yet familiar, and then it happened. The ghastly truth unfolded like a dark blossom in my mind. The doll wasn't merely holding the souls of the children, it was their jailer, battening upon their despair to feed its ghastly appetite. My connection to it was intrinsic, a woven thread of fear and regret that had drawn me into its lair. I had been the catalyst, pulling their souls back into this horrifying existence. Release them! I rasped, feeling the strength of my defiance swell as I drew on the power of love and hope, a power that transcended even the darkest of horrors. The shadows shivered, recoiling as I summoned the memories of their joys, their laughter before they were ensnared. But the darkness was relentless. Tendrils lashed out, clawing at my skin as I fought against their summons. Choose! The voice commanded, the doll's presence looming larger, forcing me to confront the truth. Either accept your place in this dark dominion, or let everyone perish. The choice bore down on me like an unbearable weight. My heart raced in synchrony with the countless souls trembling around me, an agony that reached deep into the fabric of my being. I won't let you destroy them! I screamed again. You think you hold me? You think you can taint my love? With that, I turned the connection upside down, weaving my will into a each heartfelt wish encapsulating the love I held for the children, for their laughter echoing like a prayer against the cold, hard floor of despair. The shadows bucked and twisted, pulling in a frantic dance around me. No! You will not escape! The thing screamed as reality began to fracture. Darkness thumos, folding in on itself, faces rising, looking up at me in desperate hope. In that moment, the dolls shattered. A splintering cacophony erupted, echoing through the shadows, tearing apart the reality that had trapped us. Mirroring the shards of porcelain cascading down, the encroaching darkness began to dissipate, revealing glimmers of light where silhouettes of children materialized, breaking free of their shackles. Each luminous figure held a promise in their eyes, a truth that outshone the very darkness that had held them. But just as I thought I had secured their liberation, a chilling realization struck me. I was still tethered to the doll, an anchor binding my fate to theirs, unable to escape the impending horror rearing its head within the void. Not all shall be freed, the malevolent voice hissed, its tone now deceptively tender, stretched between mockery and lamentation. You will always be connected, dear girl. You've become part of the story whether you like it or not. And as the brilliance of souls burst forth into the darkness, their forms swirling around me, joy and terror merged into a single scream. I was intertwined with those lost, captured within the very fabric of their despair. I could feel my heart giving way into the laughter of the damned as shadows surged forth, reclaiming dominion over the earth, reaching for my essence, excited and hungry. I was the vessel, the anchor holding it all together, the whisper of fear on the edge of a nightmare's grasp. You will never be free! The doll's voice slithered through the remnants of my mind. We are one! Forever! And as the laughter of children enveloped my scream, I understood the true horror. I had delivered them to freedom, but in return, I became a spark within the darkness. I resided alongside their echoes, my voice entwining eternally among the whispers, forever and always, a ghost in a world untouched by light. In that chilling moment, I was forever lost, an echo of despair in a doll that would never truly end, holding on to the truth darkness always claims its own.